Ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars, topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, where we discuss all the news in the world of basketball. As always, my name is Ben Brown. I'd like to thank you for joining us here on another episode today on Wednesday, March 29th. The playoffs in the NBA start April 15th, so we're just about a couple of weeks away from NBA playoff basketball, which of course is always fantastic and exciting. And quite honestly, I am really excited for the playoffs, as always. It's when the games finally start to really count and matter, and everything gets sort of figured out. You know what I mean? We see how the teams are, how they're seeded so far. The playoff time is where we really see what they're made of in a series. So I'm really excited and definitely looking forward to the NBA playoffs a couple weeks from now. So we'll talk about the NBA scores from last night. Had a couple of interesting games. Big one between the Warriors and the Rockets. The Heat and the Pistons end in dramatic fashion, as well as some of the other games around the National Basketball Association from last night. We'll also preview some games tonight. We have another big one involving the Golden State Warriors. They will be in San Antonio to take on the Spurs, so a big matchup there. The Warriors currently have a 2.5 game lead over the San Antonio Spurs for top seed in the West. And the Warriors have been playing really good recently without Kevin Durant. They're currently on an 8-game winning streak. So we'll have to see how that goes tonight. We'll be previewing that a little bit later in this first segment. Switch over to some college hoops. Talk about the AP All-American teams. The first, second, and third teams were revealed yesterday. Talk about who they are and how deserving these players are. We'll also talk about Harry Giles declaring for the NBA draft, what his potential is in the NBA. Talk a little bit about Lonzo Ball because, quite honestly, we have to. And yesterday, he and Markelle Fultz kind of throwing shade at each other a little bit, but primarily Lonzo. But I wouldn't say necessarily throwing shade, but just the debate as far as who's better, who's going to be that number one pick. Will it be Markelle Fultz from Washington or Lonzo Ball from UCLA? And we'll also talk about Steve Kerr, how he really praised Mike D'Antoni for his coaching job last night and said he is the coach of the year. Although I would disagree, I would lean somewhere else. So we'll talk about who they are at the end of the show. But first, let's get right into it. Talk about the NBA games from last night, break down these scores, who was the top performers, as well as look at some games from tonight. So the Milwaukee Bucks were in Charlotte last night, and they picked up a road win over the Hornets, 118-108. Tony Snell from Milwaukee coming over with a big performance, 26 points. Kemba Walker had 26 points, 5 assists, and 3 boards in the loss. The Timberwolves edge out a 1-point victory on the road against the Indiana Pacers, 115-114. Karl Anthony Towns, the big man, had 37 points and 12 rebounds in this game. Paul George in a losing effort as well, 37 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 assists. And he also really questioned the Pacers' pride last night. Pacers are really struggling right now, although they still see themselves as the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference right now. They're really struggling and having a really down year as far as a lot of people, myself included, thought they would have. And he's kind of questioning the pride, Paul George, a little bit. And you know what? I feel like this is kind of a little bit more of an example of Paul George showing us that he's probably going to leave when he has the chance. The dude is not happy. He was not happy at the trade deadline. He's kind of questioning the Pacers' pride now. He got ejected in a couple of games, picked up some technical fouls. He doesn't seem really happy and settled in Indiana. And I think this is just another example of why he's probably going to leave when he has the chance in the summer to go to maybe like the Lakers in a couple of years or the Celtics. We'll see, but I think the Paul George era in Indiana is slowly coming to an end unless Larry Bird and company can really do something to get more players around him because he wants to win. You know what I mean? He wants to win rings. He's gotten close in the Eastern Conference Finals a couple of times when LeBron was in Miami, but it's never really been the same for George. So I think he's kind of done, and he's kind of getting fed up. But Timberwolves pick up a nice road win, 115-114. The 76ers beat the Nets 106-101. Robert Covington, 21 points, 13 rebounds, nice double-double there for the small forward. And Brook Lopez, 26 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists for the Nets. Not bad there. The Sixers pick up their 28th win of the season, which is honestly fantastic. Good for them. The Hawks pick up a 95-91 victory over the Phoenix Suns without Devin Booker. Dennis Schroeder, 27 points, 9 assists, and 6 boards. The young German point guard is really fitting in nicely in Atlanta. And TJ Warren, 24 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists. In the loss for the Suns, the Hawks improved to 38-36, and they see themselves in 5th in the Eastern Conference right now. Moving on into the rest of the games, I mentioned the Heat and Pistons came down to the wire, and that's because it was a Hassan Whiteside tip-in at the buzzer that gave the Heat the 97-96 victory over the Pistons in Detroit. Goran Dragic had 28 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. Ish Smith for Detroit, 19 points, 6 assists, and 3 rebounds for him. But the story was definitely the Miami Heat and Hassan Whiteside getting the tip-in for the win there. The Heat are firmly in a battle for playoffs. I mean, they're currently the 8th seed right now. They have a 1-game lead over the Bulls, 2.5 over the Pistons. And quite honestly, the Heat are only 2 games away from the 5th seed in the East because you have Atlanta and Milwaukee, which are tied. You have Indiana, which is a game back of them, and then the Heat, which are 2 games back. So, given how the Heat started, to be even in this situation is remarkable. Eric Spoelstra has done a fantastic job. Remember, they were on that 13-game winning streak at one point, and now they're in the 8th seed, and they could potentially be the 5th seed. It's crazy to think. I think right now the Heat are definitely, of the teams in the bottom half of the Eastern Conference standings, I think they're definitely the most dangerous team because Hassan Whiteside definitely controls the inside, great rim protector, can really change games. You have Goran Dragic, which is a very exciting and good scoring point guard. Dion Waiters has done really well for the Heat as well this season. So I feel like and even the experience of Eric Spoelstra won a couple of championships. So I feel like they're definitely the most dangerous team at the bottom half of the Eastern Conference. And the team you probably want to avoid most. You know, I'll take my chances against a team like Indiana with Paul George and 4 other guys. The Bucks with Giannis Antetokounmpo and really 4 other guys. And the Hawks Hawks are okay. I mean, Dwight Howard, not really much of a scary threat. Dennis Schroeder's a pretty good piece. But the Heat, in my opinion, are definitely by far the most dangerous of them because of how good they've been playing lately. Just really, since the second half of the season, the Heat have really turned it on. And they got a big win last night thanks to Hassan Whiteside's tip-in at the buzzer, 97-96. The Trailblazers pick up a 122-113 victory over the Denver Nuggets, and they overtake them for the 8th seed in the Western Conference playoffs. They currently have a 1-game lead at them right now. In that game, Jusuf Nurkic had a career-high 33 points and 16 rebounds against his former team. He even threw a little shade at the Nuggets for trading him. He said, I'm really excited because we're going to get a chance to send them packing come playoff time now. A couple weeks left, so he is speaking a little early, making a kind of a bold statement there. But the Trailblazers are currently a game ahead of the Nuggets right now. So, that's a pretty good statement there. But, great, I'm the 8th seed. I get to play the Warriors when Kevin Durant comes back, or I get to play the Spurs. So, it's like, yay, congratulations, you made the playoffs. But, but it is what it is. No, Jusuf Nurkic. Great game, career high against his former team. And then the Wizards on the road pick up a 119-108 victory over the Los Angeles Lakers. Also clinched the division in the victory. John Wall, great performance, 34 points, 14 assists, and 3 boards. D'Angelo Russell had 28 points, 9 assists, and 6 rebounds for the Lakers. The Wizards now 46-28, still battling there in the Eastern Conference. They're currently 2 games back of top seed now Boston, and a game and a half back of the Cleveland Cavaliers for the 2nd seed. But they are only a game ahead of Toronto. So, I mean, it is what it is. But definitely a good victory there for the Washington Wizards, and they clinched the division for the first time in quite a while. And then our last game of the night was a big showdown, the Warriors against the Rockets in Houston. The Warriors, as I said, they are on an 8-game winning streak, so of course they did win last night, 113-106. Steph Curry, 32 points in the victory. Although he's still struggling from 3, only 3 of 11 last night, he did have 10 rebounds and 7 assists, a really good performance. Klay Thompson also chipped in with 25 points. Draymond Green had 19, and Andre Iguodala with 12 off the bench. James Harden did have a triple-double in this game. He had 24 points, 13 assists, and 11 rebounds, his 20th triple-double of the season, although it was not enough to get the W last night. So the Rockets, I mean, a lot of people, myself included, think that the Rockets could be the one tough matchup for the Warriors come playoff time because they can really just score with the best of them and really push the Warriors as far as maybe giving them a game because they're not going to play any defense. They're really just going to score like crazy. I mean, you look at the Rockets in the 3 matchups they've scored 132 points, 108, and then 106 last night. So the last game will be just in a couple days, actually, on the 31st, which will be on Saturday. So have to see if they can score 100 again. But the Rockets did not come away with a W last night, and the Warriors are finally sort of gelling and meshing without Kevin Durant, which can only be good because when he comes back, they're going to be able to have him go right back into that starting lineup and really gel with the rest of his team like they have been all season long. So for them to play so well without him is really big and really important. So they get a big W last night, and they're going to need another one tonight because, as I mentioned, they are battling the Spurs tonight in San Antonio. They have a 2.5-game lead over the Spurs for the top seed in the Western Conference. The game's going to be at 6:30 Pacific time on ESPN, 9:30 Eastern. Steve Kerr did say after the game last night against Houston that he was not going to rest anybody. So unless Popovich gives us a surprise rest, we are going to be seeing a full squad matchup here tonight, which is obviously fantastic, which is what you want to see. As far as who I think will win tonight, I'll give the edge to the Spurs. They have not played since Monday when they beat the Cavaliers. The Warriors are coming off of a back-to-back, last night playing a tough Houston Rockets team, now having to battle against the Spurs. So I'll give the edge to the Spurs for that regard, a little more rested. And, I mean, head-to-head, it seems like the Spurs just kind of dominate everyone against these top teams here in the NBA. So I'll give the edge to the Spurs tonight. Have to see how Kawhi Leonard, LaMarcus Aldridge, and company do against Steph, Klay, Draymond, and the rest of the Warriors. That's not the only game on the NBA schedule for tonight, though. We do have the 76ers hosting the Atlanta Hawks. The Magic will take on Russell Westbrook and the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Celtics will be hosting the Milwaukee Bucks. The Raptors will take on the Hornets. The Knicks will battle the Miami Heat. Have to see if the Heat can get another victory there tonight. The Grizzlies will take on the Indiana Pacers. The Pelicans will battle the Mavericks. The Clippers against the Wizards. That'll be a good matchup out here on the West Coast. And then the Kings will be hosting the Utah Jazz. We'll take our first break on the show. After the break, we're going to talk about some college basketball news, talk about the AP All-American teams, Harry Giles' draft status, and what Lonzo Ball had to say about him and Markelle Fultz. Who's better? Who do you think Lonzo said? I mean, come on. He said himself. We'll talk about that after the break here at the GSMC Basketball Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
So Frank Mason III of Kansas, a unanimous All-American selection. The senior averaged 20.8 points per game, 5.1 assists, and 4.1 rebounds. Had a fantastic season. I think he's going to win the Naismith Player of the Year. I think he honestly deserved it. I think he was the best player in college basketball this season. And quite honestly, I think he deserves it. And he obviously is looking like he might win it. He won unanimous All-American, so one of the first players to do that. So congratulations to Frank Mason. The rest of the first team includes Josh Hart of Villanova. The senior averaged about 19 points and 6 rebounds. We also have Lonzo Ball of UCLA, of course, no surprise there. Big man Caleb Swanigan of Purdue, the sophomore, led the NCAA in double-doubles with 26 of them. Then you have Justin Jackson of North Carolina, helped his team advance to their second straight Final Four. The junior averaged 18 points as well as 4.1 assists, rebounds. So definitely no real surprises there. I feel like these are probably the best 5 players in college basketball this season. So to get first team honors for all of them, no real surprises. I don't feel like anybody really got snubbed. You look at the second team, you have Nigel Williams-Goss of Gonzaga. You have Dylan Brooks of Oregon, Jonathan Motley of Baylor. You have sophomore Luke Kennard of Duke. He really, really was big for Duke this season, given all the injuries and outside issues. Grayson Allen's tripping issues. Harry Giles was injured a lot. Jason Tatum. And then you have Luke Kennard, definitely had to pick up a lot of the slack. So I'm not real surprised with him getting second-team All-American honors, the sophomore guard there. I feel like he kind of deserved it. And then Malik Monk, the freshman from Kentucky. So nice little second team there. You look at the third team, you have Josh Jackson of Kansas. The freshman will probably be a top 5 pick if he declares. Markelle Fultz of Washington, we'll talk about him a little later. You have Lauri Markkanen of Arizona, the big man there. You have junior Bonzi Colson of Notre Dame. And then you have Ethan Happ of Wisconsin, the sophomore there. Really, really big. They got to the Sweet 16, beating Villanova in the process. So don't really have any surprises. I mean, I'm okay with all these guys. A lot of guys definitely deserving. The third team's always the one that you can kind of debate the most. I mean, you have Lauri Markkanen of Arizona. Maybe you throw in Alonzo Trier, although he did not play the whole season. Definitely had a bigger impact on Arizona in my eyes than did Lauri Markkanen. But he didn't play the whole season, so you can't really hate on that. It's tough to say, but those are your those are your first, second, and third team AP All-Americans. Now, Duke big man Harry Giles, he has declared for the NBA draft. He's the freshman. He's only the 11th freshman in Duke history to declare for the NBA draft. And this comes after last week, fellow freshman Jason Tatum declared for the draft. Tatum will probably be a top 5 pick as well. Giles came in to his freshman season at Duke as the number 1 player ranked in the country by a lot of people, ESPN included. But he's had a lot of injuries. He missed a couple of years in high school because of ACL injuries. He also missed some time at Duke, 11 games because of a knee injury. So it's no real surprise that Harry Giles is leaving now. He didn't really do much in his only season at Duke, only averaged about 4 points and 4 rebounds a game because he really wasn't playing much. And quite honestly, given his injury issues, he had to declare for the draft now because if he goes back to Duke again, he has another knee injury specifically, he could be done and he could miss out on the NBA forever because no one's going to draft him. When you're looking at Harry Giles' draft status right now, he's probably going to be a mid to late first-round pick because of all of his injury issues. Had he been healthy, you're probably looking top 5 for sure. He's 6'10", kind of skinny, needs to bulk up a little bit, but he reminds me a lot of like an Anthony Davis type. So he would have been drafted really, really high. But given his injury issues, he simply just had to come out of the draft now because you can't trust how long he's going to stay healthy for. So he can't miss out on not becoming an NBA player. So I think that's also going to hurt his draft status, like I said, because you simply don't know. The potential's there, but can he stay healthy or not? That's the big, big question with Giles. So I hope the kid can stay healthy. I hope he has a great, great year in the NBA. I hope he has a healthy life and really just keeps going on. I mean, this draft is going to be absolutely loaded. To think that you could get the talent of like a Harry Giles in the mid to late first round is honestly spectacular, although you're going to be taking a huge risk on him because of his injury issues. This draft is definitely going to be really, really fun and exciting in the summertime, and I can't wait for it. A lot of guys definitely have been declaring as of late. Mentioned Jason Tatum, his fellow Duke teammate there. He also declared last week Tatum will probably be a top 5 pick, the small forward there from Duke. And real quick, before we end the segment here, let's talk about Lonzo Ball and Markelle Fultz. So, this is probably going to take up a little while, but that's really the big debate that general managers, scouts, everybody's kind of looking at with the NBA draft, because quite honestly, these guys are going to be the top 2 picks. And they have a lot of comparison similarities. So you're looking at Lonzo Ball, of course, the point guard from UCLA, about 6'5". You have Markelle Fultz, the point guard of Washington, so they did play each other a couple of times. He's 6'4". So the size, I mean, normally you don't see 6'5" point guards, but then again, you don't see 6'4" point guards either, and it is only a difference of 1 inch. So it's not much of a big deal. So it's not like, oh my God, Lonzo's 5 inches taller. He's by far the best prospect. You know, they're really, really similar. So there's that. When you're looking at stat-wise, you have Ball. He averaged almost 8 assists a game. Fantastic season. 15 points, about 5-6 rebounds. I mean, he's all balanced. He's going to probably be a triple-double machine in the NBA if he really lives up to his potential. The sky's the limit for Lonzo. You're looking at Markelle Fultz. He averaged a lot more because he was not on necessarily a great team. Washington only went 9-22 this season and 2-16 in the Pac-12. So they had to lean on Fultz a lot more because the team simply wasn't that good. He averaged 23 points, about 6 rebounds, and 6 assists. So it's not like he had a bad season either. He had a really, really good season. Lonzo came out yesterday, and he said that he feels that he's a better player than Markelle Fultz because his ability to lead a team better. He said, he's a great player, but I feel like I'm really better than him. They also had a couple of blowout victories, did the Bruins over the Huskies this season. But, I mean, UCLA, a much, much better team. They're a Sweet 16 team. And Washington only won 9 games this season, which also led to Lorenzo Romar being fired. So, of course, UCLA, with or without Lonzo Ball, was going to beat Washington. They're just simply a better team. But I think Lonzo's kind of right in this regard because I feel like he is a better leader. You watch a lot of these games, and obviously you're probably going to have seen more of Lonzo Ball at UCLA than Markelle Fultz at Washington because they were on TV more in the tournament. Obviously, Lonzo, with everything his dad's been saying about him and the rest of his family, is getting a lot of the spotlight over Markelle Fultz. And I think Fultz will definitely have a chance to showcase himself coming up with things like the NBA scouting combine and the draft and his whole rookie season. He's going to have a good career in the NBA, I agree. But I feel like Lonzo's definitely the better player for a couple of reasons. Number one, look at how this kid handles adversity. Think about everything his dad has been saying about him. He's built him up like he's the next greatest thing. He said he's going to be better than Steph Curry. He said he's Magic Johnson with the jump shot. He said everything and all these distractions he's had to go on with his whole freshman season at UCLA. And it hasn't fazed him one bit. I mean, the kid put up astronomical numbers with UCLA and is a fantastic player. So he's already really good at dealing with adversity. He's got great size, shoots the ball well, really, really fundamentally sound, and simply put, like he said, he just makes his teammates around him better, which is really, really big and important in the NBA. You need that guy to make your teammates better. And I have to agree with Lonzo. Markelle Fultz is a great player, going to be a good player, but I would take Lonzo number one, and we'll have to see how NBA GMs think in the summertime. But we'll take our last break of the show. After the break, we're going to talk about Steve Kerr, Mike D'Antoni, and the rest of the NBA coaches. Who is the coach of the year in the NBA? I'll give you my thoughts and what Kerr said about D'Antoni last night after their game against the Rockets here at the GSMC Basketball Podcast.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back into the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. We're talking about the NBA Potential Coach of the Year Award. And Steve Kerr last night, of course, the Warriors did play the Rockets last night, and he made it clear who his pick for the NBA Coach of the Year would be, and he said that he would give it to Mike D'Antoni with what he's done with the Rockets this season. He said, quote, "I think the fit with the roster and Mike's philosophy has been perfect. What he's so good at is really giving his players confidence and belief. They've obviously had an amazing year. My guess is that he'll get the trophy. He's earned it." So, definitely, the Coach of the Year for the last couple of years, Steve Kerr, has made it clear that he feels like Mike D'Antoni is going to win and should win the award this season. And you can't really disagree with that. I mean, you're looking at the Rockets right now, third in the Western Conference at 51-23. Had a fantastic, fantastic season. They are just scoring the lights out, second in the league in points, although they do give up 108, which is near the bottom of the table. He's really transformed James Harden into a true point guard, and he leads the NBA in assists because of that. So, I mean, is that or is that not enough? I think it's a good shot. I mean, the Rockets started off fantastic. They were like 31-9, I believe, but then they kind of tailed off from there. Now they're just kind of coasting to third in the Western Conference. So, I mean, great start, but not so much of a great finish. I mean, you have some other guys you always have to throw in. Greg Popovich, what he does with the Spurs. But for me, it's Eric Spoelstra of Miami. I mean, the Miami Heat were absolutely abysmal at the beginning of the season. As I mentioned, he had a 13-game winning streak going with the Heat and has really turned them around, and now he has them in the 8th spot in the Eastern Conference. So, I mean, it's like they do have a losing record still. They're 36-38, so it's not like they're just having the biggest surprise season out of anybody. But just kind of given what he's overcome the last few months, just the pure coaching job that Eric Spoelstra has done with this team, I feel like is definitely deserving. I mean, you have Brad Stevens, who has the Celtics atop the Eastern Conference right now. He's ahead of LeBron and company, so I guess you can throw that hat into the mix there. But D'Antoni's done a fantastic job, and you can't really say that he's not deserving either. For me, like I said, though, I would go with Spoelstra. I feel like he's just had a really, really big impact on the Miami Heat this last second half of the season. Really has developed Hassan Whiteside beautifully. Dion Waiters is having a great season. I think a lot of that is because of the coaching job that Spoelstra's done. He is an absolutely fantastic coach. When the big three were there, Miami, LeBron, Bosh, and Wade, a lot of people said that, oh, it's because they have such a good team. He's not really doing much of a coaching job, but that's baloney. Eric Spoelstra is by far one of the top coaches in the NBA, and I honestly think he deserves the Coach of the Year award because of everything he's had to overcome with the Heat. But like I said, you can even put Steve Kerr's hat in the ring still. I mean, they're 60-14. They're having a fantastic season. You're looking at the tops in the Eastern Conference is the Celtics. They're 12 games better than them. I mean, even the Rockets right now would be the number one seed in the Eastern Conference right now if that's what it was at. So I feel like the East is going to have definitely a tough time of winning the Coach of the Year in that regard. So D'Antoni's definitely a possibility. I mean, you have the Spurs with Popovich, you have the Warriors with Steve Kerr, the Jazz are even having a good season at 45-29. So we'll have to wait and see, but I feel like this is going to be definitely an exciting NBA awards season because we don't really have any of them that we're for sure about. The MVP is kind of like a 4 or 5 horse race with Harden and Westbrook kind of leading the charge. The Rookie of the Year, I mean, Dario Saric probably the favorite right now because Joel Embiid did not play enough games, but you still have that to kind of look at. The Coach of the Year ought to be fantastic. the comeback player of the year, breakout player, most improved, whatever you want to call it. I mean, everything is really, really exciting, and it's going to be a good, exciting couple of weeks here in the NBA to find out what we got. But that's going to be it for today, guys. We are going to be ending the show with that. My name is Ben Brown. I'd like to thank you once again for listening here at the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Paulino will be back in the studio tomorrow, probably breaking down Spurs and Warriors tonight, as well as the rest of the games and news in the NBA, college basketball, and everything else here at the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Have a good day, and we will see you guys next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.